come back on board and find me. Not sure what just happened there. My microphone was working about an hour or two ago, and now it's just deciding it didn't want to work. So I'm going to move some things around so I can have the computer a little bit closer to me, and hopefully y'all can hear me okay. All right, moving some stuff around here. Hey guys, as you jump on board, can you hear me now? Yay, Casey can hear me. Thank you, Casey. It has been a cool, crazy day. Whoops, sorry, moving the computer screen around to get a little closer in. Hey, Frank, you can hear me. Awesome. All right, we got Jill on board. Mark, thanks for joining me again. Long time no see. We got Susan. Hello and good evening. What's going on, Damon? We got Royce. Oh, my girl from Ireland is here, staying up late tonight. Huh, Royce? Debbie, you can hear me good. Oh, and Debbie, you're watching me from the YouTube channel. Thank you. So guys, those of you who are not aware, I'm broadcasting both from my Facebook Cosi Talks page as well as my YouTube channel. So you can listen to me from either or. I've been doing that lately because I know a lot of folks who've been trying to watch my show have a hard time sometimes finding me on Facebook, or they simply don't have Facebook accounts, and it's easier for them to watch me through YouTube. So for those of you who are trying to kind of help me spread the word about the show, that's another option. What's going on, Mark? We got Ashley, David Franklin on board. We got Jeanette. Hey, Daniel, good to see you, man. We got Mark Kosovic. We got Brian Bishop. Bustelo. You're drinking Cafe Bustelo. Now we're talking, Brian. Cheers to you. Haravam, man, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a little while. We got Glenda on board. Mark, we really must stop meeting this way. I agree. We got Chris from Iowa. Tom McIntyre. There's my Tom. Jody, how have you been feeling? How have you been feeling? I was thinking about you today, Jody. We got Jim listening to me through the YouTube channel in St. Louis and drinking black coffee. Cheers to you, Jim. I'm on my, I don't even know what cup of coffee this is for today. It's been a cuckoo crazy day today. Lynette with her glass of Cabernet. Oh, Mama and Papa Gons visiting. Hi, Mama and Papa Gons. We got Rhonda on board. Sounds like romper room. I know. It's been a great, and the funny thing is my microphone, I gave a talk at the Hanger support group about 2 hours ago, thanks to Hanger inviting me and VitalFit for sponsoring that talk. And my microphone was working just fine. But, you know, in the 2 hours that I step away from my computer and come back, it decides to go cuckoo. Marco, welcome. Your first time here. What's going on, Joe? We got Harsh on board. Diana, we got a good crew. We got Karen. Chuck, looking forward to today's show. I'm looking forward to it too. I've been looking forward to this all day long. Hey, Kay, how you doing? We got Debbie. You're boring just drinking a Coca-Cola. No boring in that, Debbie. No boring in that. Leanne, sending blessings from California. Just shared. Oh, thank you with the FSU DPT. Thank you so much, Leanne. I appreciate that. And guys, I do want to take a moment to say thank you. There's been so many of you who have been helping me promote this show. With your fellow support group, your fellow amputees in the support groups. Those of you who are certified peer visitors have been giving this information out to new amputees. Some of you have been taking this to your prosthetist, and it's really lovely to be able to connect with other colleagues across the country who watch the show. So guys, thank you so much. It's a one woman show. Sorry, Bob. Yeah, you're not included in this. So organic word of mouth is how people find out about it. So I truly appreciate the support, guys. We got Mariela from Gainesville driving back from St. Augustine Beach. Oh, that must have been beautiful today. Must have been beautiful. Sup, Haravamsh. All right, guys. So we're going to jump right in. For those of you joining me for the first time, Johnny V. There's my boy. There's my boy, Johnny V. Those of you joining me for the first time, welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso. I'm a physical therapist amputee specialist here in Central Florida. I've been a PT now for 18 years, and my passion is working with the limb loss community. I have a clinic here in Tampa called Palanca, which is exclusively for working with amputees, and I'm always excited about that. Hey, Mike, we got Mike on board. Oh, thank you for joining me this evening, Mike. We got Brett having a Yes, the Hanger support group from this evening, it was really well run. It was my second time speaking at that particular support group. It's in South Florida. Really enjoyed the group. And the person who coordinates the group, Liz, is just an absolute darling of a human being. And they have a lot of great things. So those of you who are in South Florida looking for a support group, that's definitely one you want to check out. We got Rita from Michigan. Did Bob get a GF? Stephen, I don't know what that means. Oh, a girlfriend. Okay, sorry. I just put two and two together. Sorry. Yeah, I get, well, this was the original Bob. For those of you who, I got to take a moment to explain Bob. So a couple of years ago when I was starting to do this show, I had put together this skeleton with one of my kids, and it was actually a full skeleton. It was really, really nicely done. And I just started using him as a demonstration, and I just decided to call him Bob. I just chose a random name. Well, as you can see, the first incarnation of poor Bob here, he's taken quite a beating with 4 kids coming in here and playing with him and this and that and the other. So I had wonderful viewers who sent me not just one more Bob. I have actually 3 other Bobs scattered throughout my studio of people who sent me replacement Bobs. And including, which of course one of my kids has it now, a little toy dog skeleton so that Bob could have a pet. So that's how I roll on this show. Anyways, all right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. We have a couple of questions here this evening. So for those of you who are new to the show, I love interaction. I love hearing from you. This show is for you. So any questions that you have, start posting them in the comment section. Brett says, everything I call Bob dies. Well, that's unfortunate. Hey, Trent, good to see you. So guys, if you're new and you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section and I will definitely address them. First question comes from Danny. Danny says, hi, I'm a right above the knee amputee. I have a mechanical knee suction socket. I walk using my prosthetic leg with a walker. I walk fine on hard surfaces and low cut carpet, having difficulty walking on semi-shag. It feels like the bottom of my shoe is sticking. Any suggestions? I feel unstable. Yes, lots of suggestions for this one. Quick Cosi poll. Hang on, I'm trying to make sure I get some of these comments here. William, absolutely. Oh, Joe, yes, absolutely. Joe is asking if you can share my videos on your YouTube channel. Absolutely, guys. I'm starting to put out more content out there just about topics that you all have mentioned that you want to hear more about. So feel free to share these videos. Also, you can sign up for my email subscription through my website. And I'm going to go ahead and put my website up there because a lot of people aren't sure where they can find me, where they can find my instructional videos. If you sign up on my website, basically any video that I put out there gets sent automatically to my email subscribers, so you don't have to go hunting for it. So there's something right there. Hey, Sandra from North Central Florida. All right, so getting back to Danny's question, he's got right above the knee, he's got a mechanical knee suction socket using the walker, fine on flat, but when he starts walking on surfaces with uneven terrain, like a shag carpet, he gets into problems with his shoe sticking. So quick Cosi poll, how many of my above the knee run into this problem? Show of hands. I had 2 people in my clinic this week that I could safely say also had the same problem. And the first thing I noticed about them was that they were not using their knee properly. Okay. And this happens a lot with my above the knee users, especially if they didn't have a strong course of physical therapy to teach them how to use the knee, whether it was a mechanical or computerized knee. Okay. When we move through the gait cycle, our knee has to do some bending, right? It has to bend and then it has to extend before it hits the ground again. Let's see if Bob's willing to cooperate this time, right? So your knee is going to be extended when your heel hits the ground. And as you go through the gait cycle, right, the knee bends and then kicks back out again. So a lot of folks with the mechanical knee and the computerized knee, because they feel unstable, they feel insecure, they're not going to bend that knee as much as they're supposed to. So what happens is they end up scuffing the bottom of their shoe on the floor, okay? And it's especially noticeable when they're on a thick carpet, when they're on the grass, when they're on uneven terrain, okay? So they'll bend the knee just enough to kind of clear it through, okay? But again, when they start walking on uneven terrain, that's when it starts to really become a problem, okay? And teaching an above the knee amputee how to really bend that knee through the gait cycle, it takes some time because you have to be able to trust that knee. You have to be able to trust that leg and that foot placement, okay? So that's one of the big reasons I see people who have problems with the scuffing of the bottom of the foot. Other reasons could include the actual prosthesis itself. If the prosthesis is a little too long, right, it's going to scuff on the bottom. And you may have gotten good at compensating for it. Like some people kind of hike their hip a little bit, but then when you hit, again, those uneven terrain, you're going to notice that your foot is scuffing on the bottom, okay? So Danny, in your case, especially if you yourself are saying you feel unstable, okay, go back to your prosthetist. Make sure that the alignment is correct. Make sure that your socket is fitting properly, that you're all the way into the socket the way you should be so that you're getting that nice support, okay? And then obviously try to find that physical therapist. Try to find a therapist who can help train you how to really start bending that knee through the entire gait cycle so that you can pick it up off the ground and really swing it through the way it was meant to go, okay? All right, let's see some of these comments that were coming in. Daniel says, do you have any high activity sleeves and liners that you recommend for runners? Daniel, I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Okay, Diana says, me. Steven says, never took out shag carpet in about 1978. Well, there you go. Just take out the shag carpeting. That solves the problem right there. But no, all joking aside, this is a problem that can happen when people start walking on grass or just even some of the thicker ply carpeting. Jeanette says, I used to play sports. When I get my leg, will I be able to play some sports again? I also scuba dive. Is there a prosthetic for that? Jeanette, let me introduce you to Mark Silverman. Mark, now is your chance. Ooh, I see Mark already responded. He has just taken up the sport of scuba diving, so he's been a wonderful pioneer for that. Jeanette, yes, you are able to play sports. The lovely thing about being an amputee today compared to just even 20 years ago when I started out in my career is we have so many more different organizations now for adaptive sports. Okay, the first one that comes to mind is a beautiful one in Richmond, Virginia, based out of there, and it's called Sportable. And they have all sorts of adaptive equipment and teaching people how to get back to sports. So Jeanette, if this is something that you're interested in doing, I would definitely just Google it. Honestly, this is the one time I'll tell you, go check with Google and see what Google has to say, and type in adaptive sports in my area, adaptive sports, and put your city in there. OPAF used to be a wonderful resource, and unfortunately, they're still in the process of kind of rebuilding, but they offered a series of clinics of sports so that people could try how to get back into certain sports in a safe way. But definitely, Jeanette, if you were active in sports prior to your amputation, I definitely encourage you to find a way that you can somehow get back into it through the adaptive sports. And a large part of it starts within the support groups, honestly, Jeanette. The support groups that I have found on Facebook are just a wonderful resource from people all across the globe that are trying to do these things as well. And we have some very, very active people on Facebook. And yes, they do have water legs out there, Jeanette. Again, I've seen it more as a personal preference. A lot of the folks that I know of that go swimming, they prefer not to use a water leg. It's just a little bit easier for them. But I have seen some people with like a swim leg that they can attach a fin onto it. Okay. Ashley says, yes, I occasionally box, and I was a wrestling coach before I transferred schools. So I'm a high school teacher. Here, there's Robin from Sedona, Arizona. Vacations only have a minute. And actually, Jeanette, Robin is another wonderful example of an adaptive athlete. She does everything. Let's see. Steven says, ice has been an issue recently. Yep. Walking in the snow is okay. It grips the foot. Ice is terrifying. I had a bad fall a month ago. And Steven, I'm glad you brought that up. Obviously, here in Florida, we're dealing with sweat, not ice. So sweat in the socket is more what we have to deal with. But obviously up northern folks with all the ice and the crazy weather that's been going on, ice is a huge problem. And there was somebody here, and if anybody can chime in on this one, I would really appreciate it. It's a special, I want to say it's called Yak Trax. Am I saying that right, guys? It's something that can go on the bottom of the shoe that provides a little bit of traction, especially for those of you who walk through some really, really icy areas. And yeah, I've heard of some people who have some really nasty falls causing even concussions and broken bones. So if anybody has any tips on that, start posting, please. Let's see. Susan says, I'm a below the knee and I use a cane. I felt very unstable on my uneven yard until I saw a snake, and then I ran like I was. Oh, Susan. Oh dear. Well, motivation, that'll get you moving, Susan. And guys, it's definitely, when I work with a new amputee patient, I definitely take into consideration what is their surrounding environment. Are they someone who likes to be out in their yard, walking their dog, doing gardening, going to the beach, areas that are going to be putting them on different terrains, and seeing what I can do to replicate that environment and teach them how to maneuver this environment with their prosthesis. So that is definitely a skill that needs to be practiced, and needs to be learned. You need to be able to move around in this world. Justine asks, I'm working with my very first hydraulic knee patient. Is there anything that needs to be focused on right off the jump? Okay, so Justine, and I love it when clinicians chime in with questions, because I think it's a great opportunity for both sides to learn. So when you're working with the hydraulic knee patient, you first need to determine, is this a mechanical hydraulic knee or if it's a computerized hydraulic knee? So the big difference, and this is again, general umbrella, Justine, is that with the mechanical hydraulic knee, when the patient hits the ground with the heel, when their heel strikes the ground at heel strike, they have to engage their glutes, the butt muscles, guys, and they have to pull back to keep the knee straight. That's what's going to help keep that mechanical knee from buckling, okay? Versus the computerized knee, where they can hit the heel strike, their heel can hit the floor, and they don't have to actively pull back on the glutes, okay? So that's the big general difference between a mechanical hydraulic and a computerized hydraulic knee, okay? So with any amputee, Justine, definitely do a thorough manual muscle testing of all the muscle groups in both the residual limb and the sound limb. And guys, you guys have heard me talk about manual muscle testing. It's one of the many tests that we do as physical therapists to test muscle strength. And we grade it on a scale from 0 to 5, right? 5 being the strongest normal strength, 0 being a paralyzed muscle, okay? So when we're looking at our patients and assessing our patients, we're really trying to pinpoint which muscle group and sometimes which muscle, specifically which muscle is weak and needs to be worked on. Because sometimes when you see a person walking, it can be a little bit confusing as to what's really going on, which muscle is compensating for what, right? So we'll throw our patients on the mat, flip them around a couple of times and test these muscles in a very specific manner. So in general, with amputees, 2 big muscle groups that always need work, glutes, all the glutes, max, medius, and minimus, right? You need that glute max to provide that extension on the hip, that power. That's what's going to power the gait forward, both for my above the knee and my below the knee amputees, okay? Glute medius and minimus helping stabilize that hip, give it a good rock solid foundation as you're in stance, as the foot hits the ground, okay? So those are just some of the basic things that you will want to work upon. And then guys, I'm going to type in, today's the night I'm going to be typing in a lot of stuff. Okay. And this goes both for everybody listening right now, because this is a phenomenal resource. So Justine, go to YouTube and type in Mission Gait Cosi. Mission Gait is a fantastic organization in Virginia, and they are working on basically creating a curriculum to continue teaching therapists about gait training. And their focus is definitely on amputees, okay? And we did a series of exercise videos, of foundational exercise videos. So if you type in Mission Gait Cosi, you guys can find the foundational exercises that I give pretty much all of my amputees. And it's really great for clinicians and for amputees alike, okay? But Justine, please feel free to email me any more of your questions and how I can help out with your patient. All right, let's keep going through. Sorry, guys, trying to catch up here. My pleasure, Jeanette. Sorry, catching up with these comments. Okay, Jody says, I keep getting air in my liner today. I don't know what the problem is. Today is the first day I'm walking more with just a cane. And without the walker, I'm getting back to walking, even though without the cane, but I'm not all that stable yet. So Jody, I know you've been having some health issues going on. So if you're getting air into your liner, a couple of things, did you possibly lose a pound or 2 during your time that you weren't feeling well? So maybe that liner is fitting a little bit loose on you right now. Also, Jody, I don't know if you have suction or if you have vacuum, elevated vacuum, what kind of a suspension system you got going on. You might want to check there as well. And also the fit of your liner, guys. A lot of times, folks get into a hurry. They'll just pull on that liner and get going. And then they run into problems either with air in the liner or a lot of sweat going into that liner because they didn't do a proper full contact. So just as a little, little reminder, when you're donning your liners, you have to roll it inside out all the way, right? and then put that end part directly onto the residual limb, and making sure you have full contact so that there's no air pockets, right, with where the air can get through and then sweat can also collect there. So Jody, because you're getting kind of back on your feet after whatever it is that you went through. So that can definitely affect how your liner is fitting and how your socket is fitting, especially if you're a little dehydrated, for example. Your limb volume may have shrunk a little bit. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Yes, thank you, Kay. Yax tracks. Yax tracks. So Diana says, Yax tracks work really well. I had to use them before I lost my leg delivering mail in the snow. So my impression, and ladies, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a Southerner here in hot Florida, but the Yax tracks, I think it goes under the tread of your shoe just to give you a little bit of traction as you're walking through some ice. David Franklin, great question. David asks, selecting appropriate footwear for my prosthesis was problematic. It was more experimental than being taught how to select proper footwear. Shoes are a critical component of successful, safe, and confident walking. Any suggestions? Still trying to get better at this. Yes, David. And usually most of my patients come in and they're just like, I like this shoe. And they're stuck on that one shoe. And I usually, if it ain't broke, then my philosophy is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when someone asks me for what kind of shoe and footwear they should be using, when you're first learning to use your prosthesis, I definitely recommend a good tennis shoe, a good sneaker, something that has a lot of good support in it. For those of you who are diabetics, especially my brittle diabetics or my diabetics that have a lot of problems with their sound foot, I definitely recommend getting the proper diabetic orthotic shoe. Okay. So the reason why I recommend something so stable is because of the fact that while you're learning how to use your prosthesis, your sound side is going to be taking most of the pressure from your body. Your sound side is going to be carrying most of the weight of your body until you get comfortable using your prosthesis, and hopefully with the help of a physical therapist, right? To hopefully put some more of that weight into the prosthesis itself. Okay. So at that point, David, I would say, what does your sound foot look like? I had a patient in this week that he's an above the knee on one side, but when I was looking at his sound foot, he had a lot of pronation, meaning his foot was really, really rolling in, and it was actually starting to cause him some pain on the inner part of his knee. So in that case, it was, for my recommendation to him was to find a sneaker that gives him more support, more arch support, basically in his case, and then move that same shoe over to the prosthetic side. Okay. So things that you guys need to take into consideration when you are selecting shoes to wear. Okay. When you're first learning to use your prosthesis, guys, I always recommend just wear the same shoe. I know it's kind of a Debbie Downer to just say, okay, I got to wear the same shoe for however many months it takes for me to learn how to use my prosthesis independently. But you want to keep things stable. And the reason is because your limb volume is changing. You're going into and out of the socket. Your prosthetist is still making tweaks on the alignment. So every little thing will throw something else off. So if you start changing your shoes before everything is finally in place, then that means that's something else that your prosthetist has to take into account with your alignment, and it will throw your alignment off. And we're talking, guys, it doesn't take much. We're talking as little as 1/4 of an inch. Okay. Especially with some of these shoes that have about 1/4 of an inch difference between them. Okay. So I always recommend, keep the same shoe so that your prosthetist can make the adjustments to that pair of shoes. Once you're completely independent with using your prosthesis, okay, and you're walking on uneven terrain, you're independent in your life, in your community, then you can think about, okay, how can I switch my footwear and how will that affect my alignment? Okay. Especially for my ladies, some of my ladies who like to wear ballet flats on one day, but maybe they want to wear something with a little bit more of a heel the next day. Okay. And having that conversation with the prosthetist to see how will that affect their daily alignment. Okay. I've seen some prosthetists where they teach their patients how to adjust the height, especially, like I said, some of my ladies who like to change the height on their shoes. Gentlemen, there are some of you who like to wear your sneakers when you're at home, but when you go to work, you like to wear the more thin-soled floor shine lace-up shoes or Oxford shoes, right? And that changes the heel height for my gentlemen as well, okay? Some people will opt eventually to get a foot that actually adjusts the heel height. And the first one that comes to mind is the runway foot by Freedom Innovations. I think that's right. And that's something that the person can, there's like a little place in the back of the heel where the person can adjust the heel height. Okay. But David, when you're first selecting that footwear, dress your sound foot. Okay. Have someone take a look at the alignment on your sound foot and make sure that that foot is protected, whether you need more arch support, whether you need more heel cushioning, whatever it is that that particular your sound foot needs, that's what you want a baby right there. Okay, so. Oh, thank you, Johnny. Johnny just posted Yak Tracks up there, the link for that. Thank you. So Justine, your patient has the mechanical knee. So again, what they need to be able to learn how to do is when they hit heel strike, they have to be able to pull back so that the knee extends. And at the same time, and it's something you gotta teach the patient, how to do that forward transverse pelvic rotation on that hip. So they have to learn how to activate by rotating forward, transverse pelvic rotation. Let's see if Bob can cooperate. Okay. So there's the front of your hip. They have to learn how to rotate forward, bring the leg forward, hit heel strike, and then pull back slightly to get that knee into extension. Justine, the other thing I highly, 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 highly recommend for any physical therapist who's working with an amputee, call the prosthetist. Call the prosthetist. Whenever I have a patient come into my clinic with a new prosthetist that I've never met before, I always give them a call and leave a message and introduce myself. And Justine, I cannot tell you the wealth of knowledge that prosthetists can be when it comes to troubleshooting these mechanical and these prosthetic devices. I get new feet, new technology coming into my clinic all the time, stuff I've never seen before, worked with before. And usually the first person I'll call is the prosthetist and say, hey, give me the quick run through. How does this particular knee work? How does this particular foot work? What do I need to take into consideration when I'm doing gait training with this particular device? Okay. The second person you need to get in touch with, Justine, is the sales rep of the person of the manufacturer who made the mechanical knee. Okay. They are also a wealth of knowledge because they're going to know that product better than anybody else. And I'm very fortunate to be in touch with several of the sales reps in my area from several different companies. So if it's, again, a new piece of technology that the prosthetist is still learning themselves how to make it work and how it applies to the gait cycle, the sales rep, they can really take your knowledge to the next level and send you information on how this particular piece of equipment works. Let's see. Susan says, that'll get you running. Seriously, didn't know I could run until I saw the snake. Oh. Okay, so Karen says, how do you walk slower? Karen, I don't think I've ever gotten that question before. She says, I walk faster now that I have my prosthetic, and sometimes it can be an issue. And that's what's interesting, and this goes for people who have two anatomical legs. We all have our natural walking speed. We all have that walking speed that is efficient for us. I kind of call it our walk forever pace. And even for my runners, I have there's a pace called the forever running pace, the pace that you can just keep running at comfortably without a problem. And the same thing with walking, okay? And it's more efficient for you. So interestingly enough, when I work with a lot with my amputees, they're taking it slow in the beginning for obvious reasons because they're trying to figure out how to operate this leg. But after a while, I will actually encourage my amputees to speed up their cadence, to speed up their walking just a little bit, because it forces the body to take a more natural rhythm and it can actually be more energy efficient, provided that they have the balance and the stability and the strength to be able to do this. So Karen, in terms of how do you walk slower, practice. You've got the hard part, the walking fast and being stable while you walk fast, that's the harder part. Walking slower, it's basically that, learning how to adjust the length of your steps depending on what environment that you find yourself in. Okay. Okay, so Casey, you are so funny. Casey's calling me out. He's saying, I didn't do proper welcome to everyone to ask what everyone was drinking. My bad. So guys, it's never too late. That's part of the, there's a flying mosquito in my room. Hopefully it won't come this way. Anyways, squirrel. All right, guys. So what's everybody drinking this evening? Especially my newcomers. It's kind of part of the hazing ritual in Cosi Talks. You got to let me know what you're drinking tonight. I've got my favorite Jamaican decaf coffee. And oh boy, did I need it today. What's a good sneaker brand name to use? Honestly, Jeanette, that is as individual as the prosthesis that you use. It really depends upon the foot that you have. One recommendation, if you're looking for a good sneaker, one option, if you're being evaluated by your physical therapist, they can make that recommendation. They can take a look at how your gait is. They could take a look at your sound foot and also see what is it that sound foot needs. Another option, and I send sometimes my runners to these places, the runner specialty stores, where they will put you on a treadmill, have you run if you're a runner, or walk, and they analyze your gait mechanics to see what's going on with that foot, and they can make that recommendation. Me personally, I have what I call duck feet, like my feet really roll in and my arch collapses. I love the Hokas. For me, for running, Hokas are fantastic for providing that arch support right there where I need it. But again, that's my foot. That may not be necessarily what your foot needs. So definitely explore the options. There's so many options out there, but have someone evaluate your alignment, Jeanette, and just see what it is that your sound foot is doing. Susan says shoes that have lots of ground cover for most stability. New Balance is another excellent shoe. And what I like about New Balance is they have that nice wider width sometimes. So if you're using an orthotic on your sound side, it can fit in really nicely into those New Balance shoes as well. Kay says, I love my Hokas. And guys, it's so individual, and there's so many good brand names out there. I will say my favorite brand names, Hokas, Sauconys, Mizunos, and New Balance. Definitely those are kind of my top 4 that I refer the most to. But for example, I have one of my runners that she loves her Nikes, and that's all she will run in. And she's perfectly doing well in those. Jim says, I got my New Balance shoe that worked and then ordered them in different colors. Yep. Ashley says, how often do you recommend replacing tennis shoes? My PM&R doc said every 3 to 4 months. I love those shoes. I'll give you the same recommendation I give my runners, Ashley, when it starts to wear down. Okay. So let me backtrack that one a little bit. So with the running shoes, right, they have all that gel and gushy stuff and fancy foam technology that they're putting into the shoe to give it the cushioning, to give it the stability. And some of that material will break down over time. So even if the shoe has been sitting on a shelf, say that fast 3 times, shoes sitting on a shelf. The material within that shoe will start to degrade after about 6 months. Okay. So if you have had the shoe for longer than 6 months and you've put a lot of mileage into it, that's the time to replace the shoe. And again, everybody's a little bit different, and you got to think about what is it that your body is telling you. For me, I know I need to replace my shoes when I feel like I'm just pounding into the ground. And nothing's hurting, but I just feel that pounding feeling when I'm running, and I feel like I'm just running barefoot. And that's just kind of letting me know that the cushion in my shoe has worn down. In an extreme case, if I'm really not paying attention, then I start getting a little bit of pain on the inner part of my knee. And that's telling me, hey, it's time for me to change these shoes. Okay. And every one of you will have that moment, especially if you're using that same shoe constantly and you use it in all your everyday activities. You're going to know when it starts to wear down. Okay. It's more about the mileage than the time though, Ashley. That's more what I see. Okay. Steven says, I've only worn 2 pairs of sneakers in 14 months, changed it at about the year and wore out a pair. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to read through, make sure I get all of these questions. I know, Janie, right? Janie says Nike made that zip up sneaker. That's amazing. It was designed for amputees. It looks, is it this Nike sneaker and like the person just has to like step out of it and move out? It looks so cool. So cool. All right, guys, let me go ahead and grab. Oh, Brett, you're so sweet. Let me go ahead and grab this next question that came on board. Ooh, Casey, this one's your question. Casey asks, I'm on my first running leg. I'm an above the knee amputee. Is a sub-ischial socket truly the best for running legs, especially for first timers. I just feel so unstable in it. Okay, so let's just review real quick. For my above the knee amputees, your basic socket design is called the ischial containment socket. So right here, right here is your ischium. Basically, when you're sitting down, you have two. One, two. It's your butt bone, the bone that you're sitting on, and the part of your bottom that hits the seat. Okay, so that's your ischium. So the goal of these ischium containment sockets, excuse me, Bob, is to basically contain the ischium. So I'm not sure if I'm providing a very good visual or not with this one. Okay, so ideally, okay, the brim of your socket is going to have this enclosed. Okay, and the reason for containing the ischium is that's where the weight is going to be, part of the weight will be distributed. Okay, the other part for containing the ischium is the higher up your trim lines go with your socket, the more stability you're going to have. Okay, number of reasons for this. Number one, very popular misconception. Your femur, your thigh bone does not take the weight of your body. It's bedtime, so if you guys are hearing shenanigans, it's because my husband's trying to wrestle 4 kids into bed on his own tonight. So my apologies if you can hear any of the shenanigans going on right now, okay? So basically, when you have an above the knee amputation, it's the soft tissues that take the weight of the body in the socket. That's how the socket is designed. And it's also designed to carry some of the weight in that butt bone, in that ischium, okay? The second part of it, and let me see if Bob can just stand up long enough, is we're trying to, yeah, this is not going to work. Bob, you're not being very helpful. Okay. So the second reason, again, for having a nice longer socket that covers the entire femur is to provide a lock. It's called the medial lock, okay? So there's certain pressure points within that socket that are going to lock that femur into place and prevent it from jiggling around and moving around. And it's to give it stability and support, okay? The problem is nobody likes to have a socket or a trim line all the way up there. Very few, and I was having a conversation with one of my favorite prosthetists the other day about this one. Very few people can actually tolerate a true ischial containment socket where their ischium and their butt bone is all the way into that socket where it needs to be. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. And also the inner part of the thigh where that socket comes up way high. Really uncomfortable, both for my men and women alike. Okay, so what's been happening lately is people have been starting to trim down those lines. Some to the point where it's a sub-ischial containment socket. Okay, and the sub-ischial containment sockets that I've seen, they only come up to here, right? Okay, so a lot of people would say, well, wow, that seems amazing because then it frees up all of this area here around the hip and you can move the hip a lot easier. And when you sit down, you don't have that part of the socket digging up into your groin area. And all of this is very valid. But remember how I said that part of the job of the socket is to provide support, to lock in that femur? When you bring down those trim lines, you're going to lose that support. Okay, so Casey, that could be why you're feeling unstable, is because, yeah, you've lost some of that stability. Okay, so it means that you have to double up on your strengthening of your glutes. You have to double up on the strengthening of your residual hamstring muscles in your quads. You have to have wicked amounts of strength, more so than your above the knee amputee who has a full length socket. Okay, I can count the number of people on one hand who successfully use a true sub-ischial containment socket. And then the other caveat to add to that is your prosthetist needs to be very skilled in fitting these. Okay, if they are not fit perfectly, they will not work. Okay, so you have to have a couple of things in mind when you're using a sub-ischial socket. You have to have a lot of strength. You have to be very stable in your socket and have that prosthetist who is skilled at building these sub-ischial containment sockets. Okay, so my long-winded point in getting to running. Okay, when you are running, everything is intensified eightfold, right? 8 times your body weight is now going into your joints. Okay, the amount that you have to whip out that leg for running is a whole lot more than when you're walking. Okay, so your suspension has to be on point, both for my below the knee and my above the knee. Many of the above the knee runners that I've worked with, they opt to have a pin lock system, suspension system, okay, to get that extra suspension. And they have a separate running leg made, which, by the way, Casey, if running is something that you are seriously considering doing as part of your fitness routine and as part of a hobby, it warrants making a separate leg, okay, for this purpose. The same way you would have a separate set of shoes for running compared to going to work, having a dedicated running leg, if you are someone who is a runner, is worth looking into with your prosthetist, okay? So the focus there with that running leg is suspension, okay? You need to make sure that leg is going to stay on, okay? Because like I said, you've got a lot of other stuff that you're going to be thinking about when your foot hits the ground. The last thing you need to worry about is the leg coming off or rotating, okay? So pin lock suspension is one. A lot of my above the knee runners will also opt to have an extra suspension belt or sleeve. And somebody had asked, I think it was Daniel had asked a question about that earlier. And Daniel, honestly, off the top of my head, I don't have anything, any one particular sleeve that comes to mind. Usually that's something that I kind of ask the prosthetist to order whatever suspension sleeve that they recommend for that particular patient. But oftentimes it looks like a neoprene sleeve that goes over the socket and goes around the waist. And that helps keep the leg on. And it also helps prevent the leg from rotating. Okay. So Casey, in the case of running, me personally, I have not seen someone who uses a sub-ischial socket when they run. And again, guys, if there's, I know I have some runners out there, if you guys have ever seen that, please feel free to speak up. But it just seems like you need to be extremely stable, even more so when you're running. So I hope that answers your question. And again, if any of my prosthetists here have any experience with this, please feel free to chime in as well. Okay. Ooh, okay. Pat asks, as an AKA, above knee amputee, I'm curious if others have had any success with snowshoes. No, this is not a Tampa issue. Love New Balance models with little or no heel to toe drop, and he's having his Sam Adams Wicked Hazy IPA. So guys, chime in here. Any of you, my snow folks, any luck with snowshoes? Steven says, I'm not going to have a containment socket second go around. Every issue I have is socket related. And guys, it's the holy grail, honestly, of prosthetic wear is the comfortable socket. More so than the fanciest of knees, the fanciest of feet. It's the comfortable socket. That is the holy grail of wearing a prosthesis. And like I said, I was having the conversation with the prosthetist the other day, and he was commenting. He's like, there's very few people who are actually in a true ischial containment socket because it is uncomfortable. And you find that, prosthetists are having to adjust a trim line here, pull down a little bit there. And then you have to worry about, okay, if we adjust the trim line too much, then you start to lose the stability in the socket. So, yeah. And again, guys, it's not to say, Casey, I know, you're a young pup. So it's not to say that you wouldn't be a candidate for a sub-ischial socket. It just might mean that you use the sub-ischial for your walking everyday leg. And then for your running leg, you use the full length socket. Royce is working on her running girl. I cannot wait to see you run, Royce. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm just kind of flipping through these comments. They're coming through. Mike, if you're still on, I told you, man, folks love to interact on this show, and I love it. Okay, so I think I've gotten through most of the comments here. Let me grab this question that came in. And guys, if I missed, if I missed your question, it's because I'm trying to keep up with the comments here. Please feel free to keep putting your question in the comment section. Don't be shy about that. Okay, so this question came from Omar. Omar says, I'm having a hard time finding a physical therapist in my area who's experienced with working with above the knee amputees. I have the Genium X3 knee, but am having a hard trouble learning how to use the knee to go upstairs foot over foot. And I have pretty bad gait. I want to know if you've had any contact physical therapist or physical trainer that has experience with the X3 knee. Okay, so let me just address one part of that question first. The part about whether I know of any PTs or personal trainers. Guys, when it comes to learning how to use a prosthesis, that is still considered to be the rehabilitative part of recovery. That is rehabilitation right there. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for personal trainers, but they are not the people who are going to be able to teach you how to use a prosthesis. They are not clinically trained. And guys, I work with personal trainers in my area. I've had several cases in the 3 years I've been open with my clinic where my patient will finish physical therapy with me. Okay, and because I'm a one-person clinic, I am not able to provide any post-therapy programs. That's something I would love to be able to do. But I'm not able to do that. And I've been able to reach out to some of the personal trainers in my area that I work with, and I help develop a program that will be safe to continue fitness training for my patient after they finish learning how to use the prosthesis. Okay. But while you're learning how to use a prosthesis, your physical therapist has to be the clinician who's following you for this. Okay. We are the ones who are trained to do the assessment, evaluation, and diagnosis of issues going on with your musculoskeletal system and also with gait training. So I want to put that out there because sometimes people can confuse, okay, both of them. Okay, now with regards to the Genium X3, okay, it has a beautiful knee. And yes, it has the option of being able to go step over step. We call that reciprocal stair training, meaning one foot after the other. Okay, it's one of the very few knees out there on the market that is capable of doing this. Okay, so the basic way of doing it, and yes, I just saw that Glenn posted there's some Ottobock training videos on YouTube, so you can kind of look it up there and just kind of get an idea. There's a couple of ways of describing this. One of them is by doing a donkey kick. So if both your feet are at the step, you take your prosthetic foot and you do like a donkey kick to the back, and it's a sudden motion and you have to put a lot of force into it and then time it to get it onto that first step. So when I do have someone come in with the Genium, that's what I'll do is I'll just put them on one step within the parallel bars so they can just practice that motion of, some people describe it, one of the prosthetists I worked with once, he described it as scraping gum off the bottom of your shoe. So that motion that you do to scrape the gum off, and that will help start the process and momentum to help carry you onto that first step. Now, keeping in mind, guys, when you have a knee that is capable of doing this, I think it's always a good idea to learn the bells and whistles of the product that you have, okay? But it does require a lot of energy expenditure, a lot of strength to be able to push up on that knee, okay? So my line to my patients who have the Genium X3 is learn how to utilize this and use this when you can, okay? But understanding that there are some days where you may be too fatigued and you may have to go just one step at a time, okay? Other thing that calls to my attention, Omar, is your gait cycle. If you are noticing that you have a bad gait, as you said, you have bad gait and you have this beautiful knee, that breaks my heart, okay? You need to address, before you think about going up step over step, before you think about pursuing anything else, you gotta address that gait pattern, okay? And guys, if there's anybody out here who's in the North Carolina area, this is where this particular question came from, who knows of a physical therapist that works with PTs, works with amputees, I am all ears right now. This is where I want the force of the community to help to see if we can find someone for this individual, okay? If there are no physical therapists in their area that are claiming to be amputee specialists or that have worked with amputee specialists, this is where you got to think outside the box, okay? First choice, go outside your zip code, okay? Travel outside your zip code, find that physical therapist who works with amputees and get it done, especially if you're at the beginning, okay? I've had more than one patient come in from out of state where they do like a boot camp and then they go home and they work on everything that they've worked on with me. And I know that there are other therapists in the country who provide that out-of-state service as well, okay? Second thing, find the therapist who's willing to help you. Okay, guys, there are a lot of really good PTs out there that they want to learn how to work with an amputee and how to help them. Okay, and you can kind of help make that bridge for them. You can help make that connection for them. Keeping in mind, as a physical therapist, we have all the foundational knowledge that we need to work with amputees. Okay, muscle strengthening, range of motion, balance, coordination, gait training. That is the bread and butter of our profession. But biggest difference is learning how to teach it with a prosthetic device. And as an amputee, you can facilitate this by connecting your prosthetist with your physical therapist. It can be just that simple. When you have a physical therapist who's motivated and says, I want to help you, but I've never worked with an amputee before, it can be up to you to say, well, give my prosthetist a call. Okay. I've had some really wonderful experiences come just from that. And just even from when I've done the show and instructing some of these physical therapists, go talk to the prosthetist, ask them about how this particular prosthetic device works, and then apply that to your own clinical knowledge as a physical therapist. Okay. So, we got to think outside the box, sometimes. All right. Let me kind of. Okay. Debbie says, I'm here in St. Petersburg and I'm worried about being able to get therapy once I start using my prosthesis because I'm on Medicaid. And that is, I won't lie, opening up my own clinic really opened my own eyes as to how fragile our current medical system is. There have been several administrations in the past 20 years that have tried different things with our healthcare system. And, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. You need to think of therapy. And this also goes for any part of your health. It's an investment in your health. It's an investment in your health. Some of you are aware of this, some of you are not. I am a recent breast cancer survivor myself, and I'm still undergoing treatment, and I'll be undergoing treatment for several years to come. And there have been points in my treatment, I have very good insurance, but there have been points in my treatment where my insurance was going, yeah, we don't want to cover that. We don't want to cover that. And for me and my husband, thankfully, it was never a question of if we're going to pay for it. Okay. It was a matter of saying, this is my health. This is a priority, because if I'm not healthy, I can't take care of my 4 beautiful children. I can't run my clinic. I can't do what it is that I do with the limb loss community. Okay. So I saw it as an investment in my health, and we had to get creative sometimes in how we were able to manage this. But that's how I am with my own health. And that's how I encourage those who are out there trying to find the right therapy. Okay. So sometimes it means having to travel outside of your area. Sometimes it means having to do private pay with a physical therapist who can be a specialist. Okay. But see it as an investment into your health. Okay. I have a patient right now that he told me, he goes, he's paying for therapy because he wants to be able to go fishing. That's quality of life for him. And the only way he's going to be able to do that is to go through therapy. And he knows that and he understands that. So for him, it's an investment back into his life. So that's how I just somehow encourage people to try to see that it's an investment into your quality of life. It's an investment into your health. All right. So Kristen says from PT here, love the cue for scraping the gum. Scraping the gum or the donkey kick. Either one, it still works. Roy says, my hip flexors are still a little tight. So frustrating. Roy's, I know you have a good physio that's working with you. So I know they're working hard with that. And everyone's going to have that one muscle group that's always going to be a little bit of a nuisance. That's always going to be tweaking them a little bit more. For me, it's my hamstrings that love to fire off. So Roy's, keep work. I know your girl's working hard with you on that one. Hey, Barbara. Okay, so Susan says, I cannot go up the stairs step over step, and I've tried several times. I am below the knee, but when it's time to bring up the good foot, I just can't move. I can't. I don't know why. My brain says step up, but my body doesn't let me. Susan, it's not you. Don't worry. You're not going nuts. For below the knee amputee, even though you have your knee, you still need to be able to really power to get up those stairs, specifically your glutes and your quads and your hamstrings. Those 3 muscle groups have to work together. Okay. So Susan, sometimes with my below the knee amputees, especially if they need a little more stability and a little more strength to get up those stairs, I'll do a mini squat. Okay. So, the basic mechanics of a squat, miniature. So instead of squatting down all the way, You just do squat down a couple of inches, hold it, and then stand back up again. Okay. And do that strengthening over and over again. And as you go on with your strengthening, you lower yourself down just a little bit more. That's a great exercise that I love. And that also helps power going up steps. Casey says, Jacksonville, North Carolina. Casey, if you have any information on a physical therapist in North Carolina, if you would not mind, please pass it along to me so I can pass it on to my viewer. That would be lovely. Tammy says, I had physical therapy with NovaCare. Not every location helps amputees, and I had to travel. Yeah. And again, guys, it's just like when you have to work with a specialty physician. You know, those of you who have autoimmune issues and you have to work with a rheumatologist, those of you who have diabetes and you have to work with that endocrinologist, it's finding the person who has that specialty who can help you and figuring out how to get to them. How many people attend this weekly webinar? That's a great question, Stephen. I really have no idea. The numbers fluctuate a lot. And then it just depends on, a lot of people will watch the show after it's over because I have all my videos available on the Facebook page as well. Yeah. Stephen says, if I took no for an answer, I would still be crawling. If you can't find what you need, keep calling until you get the answer and then quit calling. Okay. Okay, so Daniel says, I'm a right BK. How do I know when it's time to lengthen the pylon in my running leg, or maybe too long? Okay, that's a great question, Daniel. And for me, I'll be honest, guys, I love teaching amputees how to run when I have someone who's a running candidate. But when it comes to alignment, I'm still learning how to make recommendations for alignment with a running prosthesis, because things do change. So for example, Daniel, if you have a running blade, a true running blade, right? The ones without the heel on it. When your foot hits the ground, when that blade hits the ground, it compresses, right? And then it stores the energy. And then obviously it helps you and it gives you that energy in that push off part. So when it's compressing the blade, it's kind of artificially shortening your leg. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense? So especially with my below the knee runners, it feels like their leg is too short, that their prosthesis is too short. Okay. So I did a little research on this in the beginning when I was first working with runners. And yeah, it turns out that with the running blade, sometimes you need to lengthen the prosthetic side, sometimes up to 1.5 inches longer. It's a lot. It's a lot. So again, this is why when I see someone who's a dedicated runner, I'll tell them you need to have a running leg specifically made for running that will be aligned just for your running purposes. So Daniel, if you're thinking that, you know what, I feel like my prosthetic side is too short when I'm running, that I'm just kind of compressing into it too much, talk to your prosthetist and ask them to make small adjustments, Daniel. Don't lengthen it by 1 inch on the first one, maybe just 1/4 inch, then 1/2 inch, and just run with it and adjust with it, adjust your body to it, and just see how you feel, okay? You don't want to make these huge 1 inch, 2 inch adjustments because that'll just be a shock to your system. Now, keeping in mind, Daniel, if you do end up lengthening your running prosthesis so that it's longer than your sound side, okay, you need to make sure that you remove your leg as soon as you're done running. You don't want to walk around too much on that because then it'll start to cause you some back problems. So, okay, guys, I think I have finished all the questions for this evening. I think I got all the questions that were here. Guys, for those of you who are new to the show, like I said, you can submit your questions to me directly on my website, and I just posted the link there. I would encourage you guys, sign up for my email subscription. If you go to my main Cosi Talks page, scroll to the bottom and you can pop your email in there. I promise you I don't spam the inbox or anything like that, but it just gives you all of the video links, especially if you missed the week's live show, and I put it all in there all at one time. And guys, if I did miss any of your questions this evening, please feel free to contact me either through the website, Facebook Messenger, Instagram. You'll be able to find me pretty easily. Oh, good night, Johnny B. Packing the bags for Telluride, Colorado skiing. Ooh, jealous. All right, guys. As always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. Thank you to you guys who have been supporting the show and helping me spread the word about it, especially in your amputee support groups. Very much appreciated. And I will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Good night, guys. God bless.